Okay, Daryl, Krista, and Jody. And to save time and not to keep making the mistake of errors in scheduling, I'm just going to go ahead and record this as if we were all meeting. And I'll send you the notes as well as a link to the recording, and you can watch it later today, as well as review the notes. Okay? All right. So today's meeting is a uh, curriculum meeting officially. So I'm going to assume that all three of you, because you're going to listen to the notes and watch, I mean, listen to the notes, listen to the recording and watch the notes, that you will be in attendance. Okay, so we're specifically talking about course development. First of all, first point to make about course development. Uh, First deadline for that we're going to be looking at to get all of our courses, all of our syllabi, let's put it that way. We're working on syllabi, first of all, will be May the 15th, which is about a month from now, 4 weeks. That'll be a initial draft deadline. Of course, there'll be other deadlines for us to get to the final, but I think we can do the bulk of the work within the next 4 weeks. Okay? So make note of that. I'll even put it on the calendar. May 15 is our first rough draft deadline of this project to get all our course syllabi done. Now, if you don't know, and I think you both know, but I'll say it anyway, there are 20 classes in our program, and one of them is already completed. Thank you, Daryl, for not only getting the syllabi done, but he's got it all loaded into Blackboard, and it is ready to go. I am going to ask Sung Lee, our our Blackboard manager, to have her instructional designers check that out and make sure it's good to go. But that course, basically, Daryl and I looked at it last week, and it looks like it's ready to go. I would say it's 90 to 95% ready to go. Now, Daryl is going to teach that class initially, the first few iterations of it and so on, if we decide for others to do it later on, and because it's going to be a class that's offered every semester, at least once every semester, maybe offered twice, just depends on the demand. But we're going to offer at least once every semester, and it's an 8-week class. That'll be not only to meet the prerequisite, but it's also a feeder into our program, meaning it's somewhat of a promotional effort. People that are interested in respiratory but don't know much about it, they want to take the class for the purpose of completing the prerequisite as well as learning more about the field. That would be the ideal thing to do. Kill two birds with one stone. Okay, so that's what's going on first of all. All right, I'm gonna share the screen with you all, and I find it here. Yeah, okay. So let me share the screen with you. Right now, all the materials that you need to do in the Teams folder, specifically in the share drive, right? In the OneDrive share drive. So if you have access to Teams, Microsoft Teams, you should be able to see this as well. Hold on one second. Something's wrong with my screen. Hold your horses, folks. Oh, now my thing isn't even working. Hold on. I got a frozen screen here. Not sure what's going on with that. Okay, now it's flipping over. All right, now you can see it. So if you look into the Teams folder, let me go over to the specifically when you go into Teams, right, into the respiratory, because you should have access to it. And I did ask Tammy to make sure that everybody has access to the Teams folder. What you'll see is a number of different folders. Let me go to the home screen just to let you know. When you go to Shared, click on Shared, you should be able to see. Let's go to the OneDrive. You go on OneDrive, you should be able to see all the folders that exist in there. I'm trying to get to the place that I need to get to here. Okay. And here are the folders on the quick access, right? The one that we're going to be doing all our work in for curriculum is called Respiratory Progressions. You click on that. What you'll see, first of all, is this folder that says General, because it has more than just the curriculum stuff in there. It's got all the other stuff that we've been working on with the course. I mean, with the program. What you want to choose is the folder that says Course Syllabi Development. And when you click on that, hold on one second. Let me see if Daryl's here. Hey, Daryl, you here? Hold on here. Hold your horses, are you? Okay. Tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, hold that thought for 1 second. I'm going to unshare the screen and see if our friend Daryl is on. There he is. Okay, Daryl. Daryl was able to join. So, Jody and Krista, no worries. I'm still sending you this recording as well as the notes. And Daryl has now joined us. Hi, Daryl.
Howdy, howdy.
Good to see you. So I'm doing a recording for Jody and Krista, and of course you, but you're attending live, so that's good. That's kind of how all my lectures go. Half the students are in class, the other half I'm doing a
That's our
recording.
reality.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. All right, so I'm going back to the folders. So when you look at when you go into the general into the respiratory progression folder, you'll see this, right? You see Bob, Daryl, Jody, and Krista. You see the Odessa College syllabi. You see the RSPT descriptions, and you'll see a list of the textbooks. You'll also see the course assignments and the syllabus template. So let me bring up, first of all, syllabus template. Daryl, can you see this on the screen?
I can, yes, sir.
Okay, let's bring up the syllabus template first. Okay, come on, hurry up. Why is my computer slow this morning? Come on. All right, hurry up. Where is it? Here it is. Oh, that's the assignments. Okay, we'll leave that one there. Okay, still, why can't this thing come up? I'm having a little difficulty opening the Word document to the syllabus.
Yeah.
I don't know what the problem is here. Come on. Well, I'm not going to worry about that one. Let's do the other one first. So if you go, if to see who's assigned to what courses, there's a Excel spreadsheet called course assignments. So let me just close the screen. Daryl, can you still see it
Yep,
on
sure
the thing?
can.
Okay. Let me make the view full screen so we can look at it easier. Okay. So of the 20 classes that we have, they've been assigned out. You know, I've got the first whatever they are, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These classes, which means I will develop these syllabi, right? Daryl has 7 of them, and he's already done one, which is 1201. He's got the other 6. And
Right.
then Jody and Krista, you guys are going to be working as a tag team, sort of like women's wrestling.
Okay.
That's a joke. I love it. Primarily, your courses are the 5 clinical classes because there's you guys are basically your primary responsibility is the lab and the clinical practice activity. So you've got the 5 clinical classes, plus you have two lecture ones for a total of 8. One of them is respiratory procedures 1, and the other is respiratory procedures 2. And the reason for those is because since you manage the lab and all that, that would make it more appropriate for you guys to be able to work on that, on those syllabi as you're developing the lab and on all the things that are involved with the lab preparation. And then the one other lecture class that I gave to you is neonatal pediatrics because both of you are neonatal pediatric specialists. So that one should go well. So you've got the 8, Daryl's got the 7, I got the 5, and altogether that equals 20. Now the last few classes, they're going to be assigned out to other faculty for the course. I don't know who they are yet, but if we're lucky, it might be Jody's husband because he does biology stuff.
Ah,
I don't think he teaches
cool.
English, but who knows? Maybe depending. I mean, if it's a basic English class, maybe he can do it, you know. But they would be good, yeah. Daryl, Jody's husband, teaches some of the biologies right now, and he could do the anatomy,
Yeah.
physiology too, and he might even be able to do the cardiopulmonary AP. It just depends. We'll see how
Okay.
that goes. All right. So that's the assignments. Okay. If you want to know what you're attached to, the ones you're responsible for, just look on that page and there it is. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and close this screen. Ta-da. Let's close this screen out, and maybe my other one finally opened up. Of course, this time, nope. Let's see here. Close that. Oh, okay. Well, the whole thing stopped. Let's try that again. I got to get back into Teams. Okay, back into Teams. All right. Let's go to the syllabi. Come on, syllabi open. I don't know why my Word document's not opening.
Hmm.
Let's see, open an app. Let's do that. Okay, I'm gonna just open it in the folder. Hold on, I'm gonna unshare the screen here for a second. The college curriculum. No, it's syllabi. Okay. Let's see. That's not it. Sorry, my dogs are making all kinds of noise. Apologize for that. All right, here it is.
Yeah.
Syllabi template. Looks like this one is finally opening. Oh, okay, good. All right. So what is in the folders, as you will see, hold on a second, close this out, is, we'll call it a sample syllabi, but it's actually the template for all our syllabi. It says respiratory, this one was actually respiratory care, the one that Daryl had. This is not the one I wanted to open. I've got a different one. Having all kinds of trouble with this now. By the way, I hope you guys had a good weekend.
Had a
Hopefully
great weekend here. Yeah.
the weather's getting better. That's always a good thing, right? Here in
Yeah.
Hawaii, we're having winter right now here in Hawaii, so yeah, lots of rain.
Yeah. Been following that on the news.
No flooding, but just a lot of rain. Okay, can you see the one on the screen?
Yes.
It says syllabus for respiratory, so on and so forth. I'm going to make it a full screen here. Okay. Let's see, zoom, make it full screen. Oh, not multiple pages. Where's the full screen? Full screen. Heck with it. Okay. Anyway, let's look at what we have here. Let's see. There we go. Full screen mode. Finally found it. Okay. It took forever. Okay. So everything that is highlighted in yellow, ladies and gentlemen, that's the part that you need to work on for your course. Use this as your template, right? You can add things to it that are not there, but make sure that whatever you add that's not a part of the syllabus is relevant, right? And what I mean by that is, and I'll talk about it in a little bit, but we do have access to the Odessa syllabi that we made a couple of years ago, and they basically are almost, I would say, 95% the same classes that we're teaching is also the ones that was developed for Odessa, primarily because the state of Texas sort of regulates the classes that are
Right.
offered in a respiratory program. Anyway, so they have all the content and other things in their syllabi that would work with ours as well. So you can use that as content to add to your syllabi and so on, but follow the format and template of our syllabi here at Central Texas. So the things again that are in yellow are obviously the ones that you're going to edit. We got the course title. We have the description, and the descriptions come from what they call the Weckham pages, which I'll show you after I finish this. So you add the description in there. Don't change any of this, the goals or the learning outcomes. These are pretty much standard for all of our courses. Don't change the program learning outcomes because those are again standard for ours. The goal is something that core gives us. It's also the same thing they give us for learning outcome for the program, right? So that doesn't need to be edited, and you can review it and you can see what it's, why that is. They want all programs to basically pursue these 5 learning outcomes for the program that we have. All right. However, under course learning outcomes, and now this is specific for this course or whatever course you're developing, you make sure that you use the WECM end of course outcomes. And again, I will show you that after I finish this. But the WECM pages offer 2 things: a brief description of what the course is supposed to be about, and then what the end of course outcomes are supposed to be, which basically is the learning outcomes. Okay. Now the textbook, this is the thing that is going to be I would say take you a little bit more of time to think to figure out. Some things are fairly obvious. The class mechanical ventilation is obviously going to use the mechanical ventilation book. However, we do have a couple supplementary books that we are going to use. One of is the basic Egan's book, and the other one is the one by Wilkins on respiratory
Clinical assessment.
So if you find material that you want to use from either one of the supplementals, you can add it. Just make sure that you put the page numbers and all that, because we're not going to expect our students to buy those 2 supplemental. We may just provide it to them as photocopies, whatever. If you decide that you want to use something from those 2 books in your courses, we'll do something like that. We'll have the digital copy available. They can look up online. However, we'll work that out down the road. Anyway, you got to decide what book you're going to use, and you'll always I would say most of the classes will use the basic respiratory textbook that comes from Elsevier. Its main author is Hess, Hess, and so I'll show you the course book list in a minute when I finish this. So list the textbooks, and then here's the part that you can use the information from the Odessa syllabi, and that's developing what you're going to have the students do in every module. Now, again, remember, fall semester and spring semester are 16-week classes, okay? Summer semesters, the 2 summers, are 8-week classes. The exception to that is the 1201 that Daryl's teaching is an 8-week class. All the other ones just sort of follow that pattern: 7 weeks, 16 weeks for full semesters and 8 weeks for the summer semesters. Okay, so in each module should probably relate to a week, just for ease of doing that, right? I mean, there's nothing against having a module go 3 weeks if that's what you want to do. Just make sure that you account for 16 weeks of time. For example, if you say, oh, my modules are all 2 weeks long, then you're going to have 8 modules, obviously, for a 16-week class, or you're going to have 4 modules for an 8-week class, however you want to work that out. But the cleanest and neatest way to do it is just do 1 week per module. Anyway, so you list them there, whatever the chapters are from the textbook, and then what the assignments are. Now, for the continuity and what we're trying to achieve in this program, try to create objective testing, meaning quizzes, exams, because that is what students will be eventually needing to do at the end of the program, is to sit for, of course, their national boards, right? None of our classes are considered writing intensive. We're not having them do essays, write a paper, or anything like that as a major activity. You can have them. For example, the class that has anything to do with clinical assessment, or maybe even the class on home care, you can have them write a little case study, for example, if you want to make that as an assignment. Just remember that primarily you're going to have at least 2 exams in every one of the classes, a midterm and a final. And if it's a class that's primarily lecture that doesn't involve, I would say, hands-on practice, like the classes that we're going to be teaching from a distance over there, those are all primary lecture. You probably have, if it's a 16-week class, you should probably have 2 quizzes in the first 8 weeks, 2 quizzes in the second 8 weeks, and then a midterm at the midpoint and a final exam at the end. Now, so you may ask, well, does our finals always have to be comprehensive? I'll leave that up to you. If you want to make it, if you want to make the midterm comprehensive for the first half and the final be comprehensive for the second half, you can do that. But we do have to offer comprehensive final exams. So again, students have exposure to taking multiple choice exams. Because the research shows from national board assessment of many years of doing exams on students to get their RRT and all that, the more exposure that students get to, let's call them NBRC-like multiple choice assessment questions, the better they do. That's almost intuitive, right? The more you
Makes
take,
sense.
obviously, you
Yeah.
get better at it, right? But it's true. And so develop it that way. Now, we're not going to talk about what kind of multiple, whether they should be multiple, or they should be true, false. Just for now, just get in your mind that most of your quizzes and testing are going to be that type, multiple choice type exams. And by the way, true, false is considered a multiple choice. It's only two choices, though. The other thing also is that creating the assessments in Blackboard, which eventually is where these courses are going to live, it's a lot easier to put in a bank of questions than try to either write out, the assessment and so on. I should say the assessment, write out an assignment for them to complete, and then you also have to think in your mind. I got 20 students in the class, and I have them all write a 5-page essay on something. You're going to have to read them and grade them. And so on. And then again, I'm not belittling writing. I think writing has its place, but particularly in our kind of type of program, it's about objective testing. Enough said about that? I think so. All right. Let's see what else. So you can
Okay.
list the assignments here. You can describe the exam, just specifically the quizzes and exams in the second table. This other stuff you don't need to change the grade components. Yeah, I mean you can if you want to. I mean if you're heavily quizzed and so on, that would be fine. Or if you're not going to grade for discussion, that's probably the better example. If you're not going to grade for discussion, then just you can change the percentages of what assessments you're doing in that particular course. Discussions generally are for classes that meet asynchronously or at least meet remotely, but you can give students a grade for their participation in class. You just got to have them make note of it as the semester goes on. So and so is participating. They always answer questions, that kind of a thing. It's a little subjective, right, when you're doing it that way. When you're doing it as an online class that the discussion is a required activity, then you're actually grading them online and so on. So it'll depend on the type of class that you have and how you want to approach this idea of this grading for discussion. If it's not there, then just add more percentage to either the quizzes or any whatever written assignments or the exams. Like for this, like if I was doing this particular class and it was a face-to-face class, and let's say it was on respiratory care science, which is one of the classes I think I teach, I probably would not score for discussion, and I probably would not score for assignments. There would be probably, I would say, I don't know, 40% for quizzes and probably 60% for and I mean 30% for a midterm and 30% for a final. Okay. So again, this is an example, but it is not carved in stone how you use this. But we want to again do more assessments via multiple choice testing than anything else. Again, enough said about that. Course grading, that's standard. Don't have to change that. Now here it says method of mode of instruction. This can be edited in either in-class, hybrid, or fully online. All the lab classes and all the clinical classes are going to be in class face to face, right? They're not going to be hybrid or fully online. Some of our lecture classes will be fully online, but we will offer a synchronous component to it, so it'd be more considered hybrid. And I'll talk to you more about it, but basically as students come to the class, the course is delivered on a big screen via the professor who is ever teaching it. So the students will see the professor and whatever content they have, just like a Zoom session, basically. And there will be a two-way microphone in the room that when the students want to ask a question, all they have to do is speak up. The microphone can pick them up anywhere in the room. The professor will be able to hear the question and then respond to them. So it's basically like the person is there, except they're virtually there. But it's in real time. It's not a recording, right? But the beauty of it, it will be recorded so that anybody that's not there that day can actually watch it and listen to it later. That's how we're going to do our quote hybrid classes. The fully remote the fully online ones that are not synchronous or asynchronous, they'll be basically recorded lectures. There'll probably be discussion boards and so on, but those are going to be few and far between. Mostly they're going to either be face-to-face, in class, in lab classes, and hybrid ones where it's being delivered remotely but in real time. Okay? All right. So that's modem. It can be edited if you want to make things a little different on this, but I would, just kind of describe the method that's being used for that course. And if we have any questions about it, we can discuss it as a group. Now, faculty summary of the course. Since you'll see that the descriptions for each one of the courses are very brief. Some of them is only a few words to maybe one sentence. So if you want to add more to explain what this class is about, that's what this is about. Faculty summary of the course. You got the description, but what is the course really about, right?
I think that's a
At
good
least,
idea. Expand a little bit on those very brief
yeah.
descriptions. Yeah.
Yeah, give your perspective on it too. For example, if it's now I haven't memorized what the description is for mechanical ventilation, but if it only says teaching students basics and advanced mechanical ventilation, I would expand it more.
Yeah.
And I would say mechanical ventilation is used in a wide variety of acute care situations, and it's also used in home care, long-term mechanic, that whole thing. It's even used in transports of patients from facilities and so on and so forth. So you could add more to it. This just gives you an opportunity to add to whatever the description doesn't. When you read it, it doesn't provide all the information for the student. Okay. And again, discussion participation will depend on what class you have. Most of our classes will be in class. If you want to give a student a grade for discussion in an in-class face-to-face, you can do that. That's just up to you. And then how you decide you're going to grade that, that's up to you. Okay, so you can edit that as much as you want. Now, the next one is makeup work policy. This may be edited as well. Now, my experience, my thoughts on this, having done this for, I guess decades. I wasn't going to make myself sound that old. For a long time is the least amount of makeup late submission policy you have. I mean, the least amount of variability that you have, it's better for you in managing the class. For example, if you say something like, "Oh, you can submit an assignment or a quiz within 2 weeks after its due date, if for some reason you couldn't do it on that day, and you'll reduce it by 20%, and so on and so forth." I mean, you're going to get students with all kinds of explanations of why they missed an assignment and why it didn't come on time. Can you make an exception for me? Blah, 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 whatever. So
Yep.
just to save yourself the headache, just be real cut and dried about it, right? You can
Yeah.
either, I mean, and for me, this is me. I would do this. I would say assignments have to be submitted on time by the due date, unless there is an extenuating situation. In that case, students have to let the professor know in advance
In
of missing.
advance.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
And the first time that they get a zero for something that they didn't let them know in advance, that they could have. Now, if you got into an automobile accident the day of an exam, obviously you're not going to let
Yeah.
them know. But if you've been sick for a few days and the exam was on Friday and you had all week and you're out the whole week, right? Something like that. And you didn't let them know, that one's kind of hard to swallow. We're trying to develop professional responsibility as well as obviously expertise in respiratory care. We want these people to know, we got to hold you accountable for the work
Right.
that you're expected to get done, because that's what the hospitals are going to do.
They sure are.
You don't show up to work one day and you didn't call in. Oh my goodness, they may have a zero attendance policy or zero tolerance policy. You miss a day without letting us know. Pick up your check the day after.
That's it.
Aloha. No, I'm sure people are more accommodating nowadays, but try to develop that in your students, is that whole idea of being accountable and responsible for the time and so on. All right. So you can revise this depending on what you want. Then the last parts of the syllabus are just added policy. Now, we might have to add additional policy depending on what uh, Sung Lee says after she reviews the final copy for Daryl as well as the course. She's already looked at it, and she didn't say, "Oh, you got to add this, this, and this, and this to all syllabi, standard stuff." So I think what's there probably would suffice. Again, it'll be dependent on what comments we get after we have them check out our final copies and so on.
Okay.
Any questions or thoughts, Daryl? Since I got you live.
Pretty straightforward, I think, really. And thanks for making it what would you say? Efficient for us. That's what it is. It's efficient.
Thanks, Daryl.
Yeah.
All right, let me just explain the few other things that are there. Okay, let's go back to By the way, Daryl, do you have access to the Teams
Not yet.
folders?
No.
Not yet. Okay. If you go to the Teams folder, like I was showing you earlier, everybody has their own individual folders, and Krista and Jody are a team together, so you guys share that folder. In these folders is where you should put your final copies of your syllabi. Don't put all the different drafts because it could get confusing. Just the one that you want to be your final
Okay.
copy for review, put it in there. You can keep the drafts wherever you want. If you have questions as you're writing them, can always send either send it to me or send it to Daryl, Krista and Jody,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
he's written a lot of syllabi over the years.
That's true.
Give you some heads up on that. Now here's the folder that has all the Odessa syllabi in it. So when you click on this, you'll see PDFs, and some of their courses are almost exactly numbered the same way that we did ours, because again, it's Texas.
Hmm.
There's a noted as masters syllabi and so on. But when you open them up, which I'm going to just open one up here at random, this is what you'll see. Come on, there you go. Oh my God, this is just.
Look at that.
I wasn't trying to get yours, Daryl. Wow, what a coincidence. Okay, there's lovely Daryl. Now I'm not saying that we got to put pictures on our syllabi, but if you want to, fine with me. And then we may all decide to all put pictures on all our syllabi as well. And that's not a hard thing to do. Insert a picture into a Word document. Okay, anyway, here's Daryl. As you can see, there's a lot more information in these syllabi, and you can use it again as a model for, but I think some of it is just, these are probably the most involved, complicated syllabi I've ever worked with over my
Very
career.
detailed. Yeah. Nothing
Yeah.
simple about the simple syllabus. No.
But things that you might, yeah, really, but things that you might want to add, for example, they have a section on expectations of the faculty or the person that's teaching the course. That's pretty
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
So you might want to put that there. And you might even want to write a section. If you're going to put expectations for instructor, you might even put expectation for student. For example, expectation for instructor, teach a class in a timely, efficient basis, something like that. And then an expectation for the student, attend classes on time with full participation, whatever. So you might want to do that. This one only lists expectations for the instructor, but again, you might want to add a section to yours. Then there's department information, which we don't really need to do, put in there. Notice this is the textbook. And the one that Daryl had, because this is a cardiopulmonary A&P class, that's the book. If you
Yep.
want to supplement it with something from the main Egan's textbooks, you can, but I believe that that's probably all you need is just that one book on cardiopulmonary, because that's the topic.
Yeah.
Then here's the course description, which theirs goes a little bit more into detail. But again, let's see if I looked at this, provide explain. Yeah, this one is. I believe this one does come from the Weckham pages, which I'll show you again in a minute. But there is also, I think there was a summary disclaimer. This one might not have faculty summary, but if it doesn't, you can, as I said, you can add it. So they have information on grading, very similar to ours. Student course participation. Here's a section you could maybe revise some of this and add some of this if you think it's relevant to your course as you're developing it. Now, for Jody and Krista, since you guys are going to have lab classes, there is going to be a blurb on, I would say, expectations for students' participation in lab activities and so on. And what yours is also going to include, and let me get out of this just for a second, and let me bring up a clinical class. Daryl, do you know a clinical class offhand with the number? Oh, here we go. I'll use this one. The clinical class is in addition to the content. There is lovely Tiffany from Odessa. Oh, hold on. What happened here? Oops. Oops. Try that again. That was clinical. All right. The clinical classes, what you're going to need to do is, there we go, is you're going to need to add the list of skills and equipment that the student is going to use in that particular class or that particular semester's clinical rotation. So what you'll find in here, By the way, they use a different clinical manual than we are going to use. We're not using white. We're using a different one. Let's see here. There he is. Oh, okay, here it is. Information about the course. This one these are the expected competencies, and this is a very basic class, right? So basically, sepsis, hand washing, vital signs, pulse oximetry, and then get into aerosol humidity therapy, oxygen therapy, and so on. So in yours, you're going to be doing something similar. Now, where are you going to find that information? Fortunate for you, I have I have done a schedule for the 5 weeks of clinical, and I'll send that to you, specifically. I'll send it to everybody. But you'll notice on the schedule that at the bottom of it, it lists all the, I call it the clinical skills, activities, whatever, that's going to be taught during that semester. So you can use that. You can use that as that's the list you're going to put on your syllabi. Now, if you go beyond this, that's fine. But just make sure that the minimal amount of things that you introduce in a clinical lab class or just a lab session is what you list as far as the equipment and the procedures that they're going to do. You don't have to get detailed, just the main title or topic for what that is. Okay, so I'm not going to go through more of this. You can look at this at your leisure, but that's what the value of using those syllabi is going to be about. All right, what else is in here? Okay, so there is the Odessa syllabi. Okay, here's the description, the RPST descriptions. Now, whether you can choose either the new or the original, right? The newer one is what we eventually want to go to, but most of what's in there is the same as in the original. I mentioned this earlier, so I'll just say it one more time so everybody knows what we're talking about. In August, we're going to meet with the curriculum committee, and we're going to make a variation to our curriculum. Not course numbers or course names or anything like that. It'll primarily be the sequence of it. And because of the sequence, it may change the number of credits. But for example, if we were going to change the number of credits for Daryl's class, which is RSPT 1201, to another version of it, right? That's maybe 3 credits instead of 2 credits. It's still the same course number, the same description, except
Okay. Yeah.
the only change is it's going to be offered in a different semester and it would be different credits. So the reason for the different credits is the number of contact hours. Obviously, the more credits here, you got to either teach longer or do more lab time to match out the number of credits that you identify in this. And again, if you have questions on it, we'll talk about it together as a group, or just ask me and I'll tell you what it should be and so on. Okay, so I'm just going to bring up the new one as the example. Each one of these, again, this is, and I'm going to use Daryl's anyway, 1201. So this is what's in there. Each one of these pages, if there's more than one variation of this class, in other words, there's another introduction to respiratory care that's number 1201, but it's 3 credits instead of 2, you'll see it. Like I said, the description doesn't change, and neither does the end of course outcomes. The end of course outcomes are what the learning outcomes will be in your syllabi. All you have to do is basically copy and paste this onto your syllabi, but then number them. You have to look at it how it's written. Number 1 would be outline the history of respiratory care profession. Number 2 would be outline the organizations and functioning. As you can see, everything is separated by semicolons here. Is it colons or semicolons?
Semicolons.
Semicolons. So that's how you number them, right? They just write them out in this paragraph form. Some of them are a little more in detail, but these, again, is what we expect the students to learn at the end of that course. Okay. I mean, you could add, but I wouldn't get more than what's considered the end from these pages. What was considered the end of course, because when we get evaluated at some point in time, we can't stray too far from what is it the WECM is a part of the Higher Education Board of Texas. And we have to pretty much stay in line with their expectations. So the good thing is that all the programs in the state of Texas, all pretty much they look like, sound like, smell like the same type. Well, at least all the associate degree programs. So it makes it relatively easy. You don't have to reinvent anything. You just have to adapt it to what you want to do in your particular university, college, and so on. So yeah, so that's what's on each one of these pages. is the description. It's very brief here, and then the end of course outline, and then of course the number of credits it'll be. Now, for a 2-credit semester class that's only going 8 weeks, here's the test question: how many how many lecture hours is Daryl going to do in 8 weeks? Anybody?
Never been good at that math, sir.
He's going to teach that class
Uh,
once a week for dos
2 hours.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah. It's eight
Uh,
weeks.
yeah, 8 weeks. Credit hours matches the number of classroom hours.
Got it.
And
Okay.
lab hours, it's 3 to 1, right? So 3 hours for every 1 credit of lab. So as you can see, there's a range. The minimum number of contact hours that Daryl can do in this class is 32. The maximum is 80. But oh, wait a minute. 2 hours a week for 8 weeks is not going to be
Not going to do
32
that.
hours. So he's going to have to do it a little bit longer. 4 hours a
4 hours.
week
Okay.
for 8 weeks. But in reality, he'll probably do 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how it works with a
Yeah.
break in between, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, the preciseness on this is in the writing up of your syllabi and in the calculation. Now, what you actually do in class varies because it'll depend on any given day on the amount of content you add. I mean, you're not trying to have students sit in a seat to meet a time range. Oh, you got to be here for another 10 more minutes or we're not going to have 4 hours. I mean, that's the worst kind of teaching to do, is that students only have to
Yeah.
have their butts in a seat for a certain amount of time. No, it's got to be things to do. But then again, the other side of that is if it's supposed to be a 3-hour class, you're not going to only spend half an hour with them
Right.
unless, something unusual happens. But by and large, you should use the time as much as you can for the amount of time that you're expecting them to attend. Okay, so that's what's the Weckham pages are about. What else is in this? I got to show you. And I'll make this too much longer. Okay. Okay, here's the textbooks. And we have the primary, it says CATL. These are the primary books that we're going to be using in the program. They are from Jones Bartlett. And the ones that are highlighted, not all of them, the ones that are highlighted in yellow, I could have used, I guess, a darker highlight, but you can see this one is highlighted, respiratory care, right? This is a book that'll probably be used for mostly all of our class. At least one of the, we'll use this, and maybe you may add another one, right? Or we may have we may have another book as the primary book for that course, but there'll be portions of respiratory care will be taken out of it, because this book, like the Egan's book, covers respiratory care from A to Z, from soup to nuts, that kind of thing. So there's what is this? This is the 4th edition of respiratory care. We're using the foundations of neonatal pediatric care. We're using respiratory critical care. That's for anything related to So you would use this one there's 3 classes that we'd probably use: in mechanical ventilation, cardiopulmonary diagnostics, and then there's one, I can't remember the other one. There's one more that addresses critical care, but that you would use this book for that one. And you'd also use probably chapters out of their main respiratory care book. How do you know which one to use? Check the table of contents as you're
Yeah.
writing
Right.
it, right? You're
Yeah.
writing up your courses, right? I wouldn't use 3 books in one class. It's not, if you use primarily one and then excerpts from another one, that's probably good.
Yeah.
All right, then we skip down to, let's see, then we skip down to mechanical ventilation, like I mentioned. We have equipment for respiratory care. This can basically be used as a supplement, as a required supplement to most of our classes. Anything that has to do with either lab, procedures, clinical, which a lot of our classes have that. But like a class like I was mentioning earlier, respiratory sciences, would not use this class. I mean, would not use that book, because we're not really talking about, when you do respiratory sciences, it's about physics, math, and a little bit of chemistry and its application. So there could be something out of here you'd look at, like maybe I want to describe, I don't know, when I'm talking about tidal volumes, for example, it's probably in the equipment book, there are tidal volume measurement tools, like a right respirometer or something like that. And I
Yeah.
would use that as an example. This is how we measure tidal volumes, blah, 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 blah. So it's up to you as you're looking at content. Now, the best way to go about this, right, is first come up with choose the book by looking at what's in the table of contents. Say, I'm going to use this textbook. And then sort of map out in your mind, okay, I'm going to go 16 weeks to teach this. how should I use this book, right? You can use 1 to 2 chapters a week. If the book is really neat and tidy, exactly like the course you're teaching, for example, then has 16 chapters. And this is easy. I can just use 1 chapter a week for 16 weeks. You can do it that way, but
Yeah.
rarely do you find that. Usually, you're not going to use all the book. You probably use a good portion of it though, as your
Hmm.
main book, and then again excerpts from another textbook. Okay, there's those. We're going to use the respiratory therapist as disease manager. This primarily is for home care and rehab and pulmonary rehabilitation. There's
Hmm.
Lynn's comprehensive diseases, which is the class on pulmonary or cardiopulmonary diseases. And then the last two, cardiopulmonary A&P and principles of pharmacology and respiratory care. So those are the required ones that we'll be using. Now, I gave you this page because it has the ISBN numbers and so on, so it's easy for you to just copy this information into your syllabi for the textbook. Now, we will have another discussion later about how students are going to gain access to their material because there are choices. You can be fully online, total ebook. You can have a combination of ebook and hard copy, or you can have only hard copy. Those are the three choices. And students can choose, and Jones Bartlett makes it available. They can choose one of the three options, right? A lot of students go with both, hard copy as well as ebook. And then some students they're younger, they're more used to just seeing everything online, so they'll just go with the ebook. It'll be up to them what they choose, and cost as well. It's a little bit more
Right.
expensive. It's a little bit more expensive to go with the combination of ebook and hard copy, but not something like double the price or anything like that. Actually, they give us a significant discount depending on the number of students that are going to be using our books or their books.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the main textbooks. The supplemental are two. One of them is Wilkins Clinical Assessment, which here's the information about it. And this one, you can look this one up to see what the table of contents is. Here's what I would do too. This one, you can join Elsevier. This is from Elsevier, just like
Hmm.
that's the publisher Elsevier, just like the Egan's book is from Elsevier. You can go in there and sign yourself up if you don't already have an account with Elsevier as a faculty, a professor, whatever. It doesn't cost you anything. They'll just probably ask you to provide confirmation that you're actually that. So you put my name and the college or something like that, so that they know it's not just some student trying to gain access to the exam guide and all that. But you should, for both Jones Bartlett as well as Elsevier. That's Elsivier, severe. Yeah,
Sevier, I think. Severe.
yeah, severe, like severe, right? Anyway, you should join both as a faculty so that you can gain access, if anything, to
Great resources there. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
to the online version of the faculty manual that includes test banks and all that other stuff. You
Yeah.
also, when you join these, you also have an option to get a hard copy. They call it a desk copy. It's not going to cost you anything. They'll just, because you're a professor, you're going to be using their books. That's sort of a benefit, is you can get a hard copy of these books if you want them, and you just have to have it mailed to you. All right, let's see. So that's that book, and then the last one, of course, is the main. You probably Krista, and I know Jody mentioned she did as well. Egan's Fundamental of Respiratory Care. This is now the 13th edition of it. It's a difficult book to read. If you're anybody, even a respiratory therapist, sometimes I read that thing, and after a couple pages, I'm like, my eyes glaze over. Egan's has never been an easy book to read, but
Agreed.
we've used it for decades, literally.
Yeah.
what uh what is available for the Egan's textbook nowadays, but I'm not making it as a requirement. But if you want to get it, if you're going to join Elsevier, then one of the things you ask for, and I'll send you the link because I didn't put it here. There is a workbook that goes along with the Egan's textbook.
Yep.
So if you ask, you're going to have the students. Let's say they give them a math, physics exercise or something. I don't know. Oh, mechanical ventilation that has. You can use quizzes and other information that's in the workbook to sort of uh, give, like lab activities, for example. These gives you projects to do and so on. That accompanies the textbook.
Yeah.
And the workbook was actually developed by a guy that I used to work with many, many years ago. He retired a long time ago, but he had that issue. The textbook was so boring to read. He said, "Oh my God," and the explanations are hard to understand. So he came up with an idea. What if I make a workbook to help students understand the Egan's book? So he made that. But when you go online to to Elsevier, and you look up the Egan's textbook, one of the options will be to purchase there or get an example or have access to the workbook. And you should. My
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah. The crosswalk to the NBRC content outlines is especially helpful there.
Yeah, yeah, there is that as well. So you can see the material being used in Egan's to build the content in the NBRC exam. Which, by the way, how many questions have you submitted so far to NBRC, Daryl?
I've submitted 9, sir. 9.
9. Oh, that's good.
They keep
Okay.
coming back for more. They must like what I'm doing.
They must. They find one person that's willing to do the. I hate writing questions. They find one person
Yeah.
willing to write questions.
Right. Yeah.
I hate writing it. Daryl likes to write questions. Okay, so that's textbooks. I went over the course assignments already, as well as the syllabus template. So that's it. Uh, Now, Krista, I know Jody has access to this. Krista, if you don't have access to it, I would say in the next few days, send me an email and I'll remind Tammy, just like with Daryl, I gotta get you guys access to our Teams, so that when you go into your Microsoft Teams, it'll go directly to the respiratory for Odessa, for Central Texas College, and you can have it that way. Because I didn't want to wait with Daryl. I actually sent him the material in folder email attachment form. And now that I think about it, I'll do the same for you, Krista. I'll send you the same emails that I sent Daryl, and what it is, it'll be all the content that's in these folders, that's in Teams, but it's going to come to you as an email. So you'll need to save that material on your desktop or however
Helpful.
you want to save it.
Helpful.
And eventually you'll get access to the Teams folder. Because like I said, what I do want you to eventually put in to your folders is sort of I would say the final draft of your syllabi, so I can look at them. And we can, if we need to edit them or anything like that. It's one good place to house all that material. Okay, that's all I have. Daryl, do you have any questions? I know that Krista
Pretty
and
straightforward, I think, sir. I'll,
Jody.
I'll have questions as I go, but pretty
Yeah.
straightforward.
Well, we have a meeting every week. Not every week, every couple of weeks, a curriculum meeting. So between now and May, we'll probably meet 2 more times before May
Okay.
15th. So, I'm depending on all of us to make a serious effort at getting, I don't know, 80% of what we have to get done on our syllabi, at least
Okay.
the first drafts of it by May 15, which is 4 weeks from now. And then probably by the end of the month, we'll come up with the final drafts of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Helpful.
Thank you, ladies. If you have any questions, follow after you listen to this and review the notes. Just drop me an email. Okay.
Okay.
All
Have a
right,
good one,
guys.
sir.
Take care. We'll see you online. Bye for now.